right, good morning. I'm Mike, and I'm a second chancer and also a weekend gardener. Yes, I love working in my yard. I'm probably the only guy in North County that doesn't have a gardener, because I am the guy who loves to plant plants and trim trees, and I'm trimming up the bushes, and I love mowing my lawn. It's sort of like my therapy. I need a lot of therapy, so I'm out there in the yard quite a bit. And I did have a problem a while ago where my lawn had gotten some weeds in it, and I had tried, to weed and feed it and fertilize it in such a way to get rid of the weeds, but they kept coming back. I tried pulling out the weeds, but I just couldn't keep up, and I'm like, forget this. I'm gonna get a new lawn. And so I bought some Roundup and sprayed the Roundup on the lawn and completely killed the lawn, and it was looking burnt and horrible. And then I hired a guy to come in and strip out all the dead lawn and lay down brand new sod. And I remember that day. It's a happy day. Because that lawn was so beautiful and so pristine now, and it was emerald green. And I remember the next day waking up in the morning and just going out into the front yard and looking across my lawn, and the dew was on the blades of grass and it sparkled. And I'm like, I am so happy. I really am. And I was thinking, and I hope my neighbors are jealous of me right now, because my yard's looking pretty good. And so after about a week of this new lawn being in, I started to notice a problem. You see, I was getting these little round brown spots popping up on my brand new lawn. And I'm like, what is going on here? So I went to Google and YouTube to try to figure out, why am I getting these brown spots? And through my investigation, I figured out what was going on and who was to blame for these little brown spots. It was this guy right here. Let me show you. Yes. And this is my dog, Napoleon. And Napoleon is a toy Pomeranian. He's about that big, weighs about 6 pounds. And by the way, if you are wondering if that is a professional photographer's photo of my dog, yes, it is, okay? We are those people. We are those kind of dog people where we take professional photos of our dog. And so there he is, and it's just so embarrassing. I can't believe we did this, but we did. And so me and Napoleon had a little talk. I said, hey, Napoleon, you can't go do your little business out on my lawn. And he was going out early in the morning and using my lawn as his toilet. And I just said, hey, listen, that isn't gonna work for me. So here's what we're gonna do. You're not gonna go pee on my lawn anymore. You're gonna go over to the neighbor's house and pee on their lawn, and then we'll be good. And so he got that, and he was good with that. But I still had the problem of the brown spots on the lawn. So again, I went to Home Depot and I found this product called lawn paint. And it's this liquid spray stuff that you can spray on your lawn and spray on these little brown spots, and it's paint that turns the brown spots to green spots. Now it's still dead, but it looks green now. And this solved all my problems. By the way, that little gardening tip might be the most important thing you learned this morning. So you can get out there this afternoon and start spraying your little spots with the lawn paint. And so I sprayed it, and now the lawn's looking good. And yeah, even though it was still dead, the grass was still dead, at least it was green. And I think we do that a lot in our own lives. I think we have areas in our story that maybe feel dead or burned or crispy or brown, or we just have these things that have happened in our stories that didn't go so right. And so what do? We get out our own version of grass paint and we spray over it. And maybe we fake it and we pretend that we're okay, or we pretend that it doesn't hurt. Or maybe through success or performance, we build this life that says, no, I'm not hurting. There's nothing dead in my heart. There's nothing dead in my story. And so today I want to talk about how God wants to take those things that may feel brown and burnt and dead, in those areas of your life that maybe didn't go so great, or maybe you're struggling right now and you're running out of energy and you feel exhausted, I want to talk about how God can give us new life. We're continuing this series called ZOE. And ZOE is not a French pastry, even though when I heard that word, I thought maybe it was. But no, ZOE is a Greek word that means life and to live. And not just to sort of exist, not sort of just to get by, and not just to settle for like, okay, I'm gonna have some brown spots in my life and it's just gonna be dead and I'll just, live my story that way. No, God wants to invite us into this beautiful, free, enjoyable life. And he does this by saying, if you trust me, if you let me guide your life, if you let me be the bread in your life, if you let me be the light in your life. Last week, Jared talked about how Jesus was the gate. And so today, I want to look at another statement that Jesus said about himself. And as we lean into these statements, that we will truly discover what it means to be filled with this life that he promises us. And so today, I want to talk about the good shepherd, the good shepherd, because that's another name that Jesus calls himself. And in John 10, 14, it says this. It says, I am the good shepherd. I know my own sheep, and they know me. So what does it mean for Jesus, the good shepherd, to know us, to know who we are? Man, it means that Jesus has been studying you, that he is into you. He knows what kind of TV shows you like to binge watch on Netflix. He knows that you love NBC's This Is Us and love to watch that show. He knows that, right? Because everybody loves that show. We got to get our good cry on every week, right? NBC, This Is Us. He knows what kind of hot dogs you like to eat. He knows what flavor of Slurpees you like. He's into it. He knows how many hairs are on your head. He knows all about your past. He knows all about your present. He knows all about your future. He studied you. He knows your fears and your insecurities. He knows your dreams and your passions. He knows his sheep because he's the good shepherd. He's the good shepherd, and he invites us into this life abundant, this life that is full and beautiful. And I love what it says in Matthew 11:28. It says this, are you tired? Are you worn out? Burned out on religion? What does he say? He says, come to me. Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take real rest. Walk with me and work with me because he's the good shepherd. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and light. And isn't that what we all want? So we're doing this series because with Jesus, we can truly live lives that are free and light. We cast our cares upon him. They don't have to struggle with our anxiety or fears. Life doesn't have to feel so heavy even when it's hard because he is the good shepherd. And I know as we think about this picture of the shepherd, that isn't something that we probably think about much these days because we're not around shepherds. But shepherds and the picture of the shepherd is a very, very important image and a very important icon, especially in the early church. See, in the early church, they would actually use a picture of the shepherd carrying a sheep on his back as sort of the symbol of Jesus. It wasn't the cross. In fact, the picture of the shepherd was more important than the cross because the cross in the early church was a symbol of torture and death. And Jesus' crucifixion, I know we use crosses in our church now and we put them on our communion cups and it's sort of the picture, the icon of representing Jesus. But back in the day, back in the early church, they didn't use the cross. They used the picture of the good shepherd. In fact, I want to show you this little statue, this little picture. Like this is something from the early church, and they'd use an icon like this, a little picture like this, and you see the shepherd is carrying the sheep on his back. And usually whenever these images were represented, Jesus, who's there as a shepherd, always had a smile, or that he enjoyed carrying the sheep on the back. And so the idea of Jesus saying, I am the good shepherd. I know you. I know my sheep. This is a very, very important image of who God is saying Jesus is and who he wants to be in our life. So as I think about kind of two things I want to unpack for you this morning about who the Good Shepherd is. Number one, the Good Shepherd sings a song of grace over us. What do I mean by that? Well, back in the Middle East, and really, probably if you go back there now, shepherds had kind of two ways to lead their sheep. There's sort of the bad shepherd way. The bad shepherd would use sticks or stones to kind of corral the sheep and get them to do what they want them to do. But a good shepherd doesn't use sticks and stones. A good shepherd uses a song. Now, Jared talked last week about how the sheep know the shepherd's voice, right? But it's not just his talking voice, it is his singing voice. He sings a beautiful song over the sheep, and they hear this tune and this anthem, and it leads them to wherever the shepherd is, and they're drawn to this beautiful song. That's how the good shepherd leads the sheep. So I want to ask you this morning, what song do you need to hear from the shepherd? What song do you need to hear from Jesus? Maybe right now you're going through a really difficult time. Maybe you're full of fear, or maybe anxiety about some situation at work, or maybe your finances are out of control. And so maybe you just need to hear a song from Jesus of hope. Or maybe you're struggling with maybe some illness in your body, and maybe you just feel like I don't know if I'm able to get through this. And maybe you just need to hear a song that sung over you that Jesus is the great physician. Maybe right now you're in a situation that you just feel completely overwhelmed by. So maybe the song that you're needing to hear from the Good Shepherd is that he is your rock and shield, your fortress. I don't know what the song you need to hear, but Jesus is singing something over you today. And he's wanting you to hear his voice. He's wanting you to be drawn unto him and let him guide you and support you and to love you, to be the good shepherd in your life. And one of the things about songs that's really important is that we actually understand the source. Because I think for a lot of us, we're hearing songs and we're hearing words and lyrics and choruses in our lives, but it isn't the choruses and songs of the Good Shepherd. It's actually the songs and choruses of shame. It's the songs and choruses of our past mistakes. And maybe you're singing a song over your life, or maybe a critic is singing a song over your life and you're listening to that tune. So maybe today it's this sense of like replacing that soundtrack of our life to say, Jesus, I want you to sing the song of grace over me. I want you to remind me who I am, to remind me that I am loved, to remind me that I am yours, to remind me through your song that you know me and that I'm part of your family. A lot of times we put what I call together like this little soundtrack or a mixtape. And when I was a kid, I used to love mixtapes. You remember these guys? I brought one. By the way, it was really hard to find one of these. But I'm a kid of the 80s, and so when I was growing up, I'd make mixtapes all the time, and I'd put songs on here. And the thing with the mixtape is you had to make sure that you had a good source, right? You had to wait for the radio to play the song that you wanted to record, and then hit record to play it, and then capture it, and then you could play it over and over again whenever you wanted to. So for me, some of my big bands were, of course, like Devo and Madonna, but really my favorite band that I would try to get on my mixtape was Bon Jovi. Any Bon Jovi fans here? Yeah, all right. Awesome. It's like, shot through the heart, and you're to blame, darling. You give love a bad name. I play my part, and you play your... I'll keep going if you encourage me. I mean, be careful with that, all right? So but I love Bon Jovi. And so when Bon Jovi would come on the radio, I'd go, all right, that's the source that I want to get onto this mixtape. So I'd hit record, and then I'd play that Bon Jovi song over and over again. And by the way, I realize there's some young people in the audience right now, and you're going, what is that thing that old guy is holding? You don't understand how this works. Well, it's like this little tape. It's sort of like your iPhone or your smartphone, you have playlists, right? That's kind of what the mixtape was. But the difference between your iPhone playlist and a mixtape is that, when your mixtape broke, you didn't take it to the Apple Genius bar. No. We were much more self-reliant and capable back in the day. We actually got out one of these bad boys, right? A little pencil, right? Stick it in there, turn it around. We got it all fixed. We don't need no Apple Genius bar. And by the way, everybody laughing right now, these are the old people in the room, okay? They're the only ones that understand what this all means. But that's the reality. It's like we have these tapes and these mixtapes, and we got to be really careful about the source. We got to be really careful about who we choose to sing over us. Is it the Good Shepherd, or is it shame? Is it Jesus declaring his love and grace for us, or is it us beating ourselves up over something from our past? Is it fear writing the song? We have to allow the Good Shepherd to sing this beautiful song over us. In fact, this week, here's a good example of checking the source and checking who's writing the song. I got this email through my website. There's this little form that you'd fill out and we can have communication. And I got this email into my inbox, and it was a really, really mean email. Very crazy. This guy wrote me about how he didn't like one of my books, and he was saying it was uncreative, and that he wasn't even sure whether I was a Christian, and he was saying stuff like it wasn't very deep, and then he really got very, very personal, because then he says, your book is just adding to the Christian fluff. And I'm like, did he just call me fluffy? The Christian fluff. And I was getting angry. I was getting really upset. I'm like, this guy doesn't know me. He doesn't know my heart. I mean, I worked really hard on that book. I've had a lot of people say that they like that book, and that book has really helped them. But this guy, he's just spewing venom through this email, and I'm starting to get upset. I'm starting to doubt myself. I'm starting to go like, oh man, I wonder what parts he doesn't like, and trying to like have this stuff going on in my head, and starting to feel insecure. I'm starting to feel like, oh man, I'm getting so angry that I had to engage my wife on it and started like, can you believe this? And then I'm like, whoa, hold on, time out. Check the source, right? So after reading this very lengthy email about everything, how horrible of a person I am and how I'm a fluffy writer, there's a spot in the form where you put your name and a spot where you put your email address. Well, I went up to that spot for this guy, and he didn't put his name. He just put the word feedback as his name. And then I looked at his email address, and he didn't put his email address. He just put noemail@gmail.com. I'm like, okay, all right. This is not a good source. This guy is not going to define me and my writing. It's just kind of noise. It's not the shepherd's song. And so maybe there's some things in your life that you have allowed to define you. You've allowed emails and comments, maybe some things from your childhood, maybe something that your parents said to you to be your song. And Jesus is saying, let me, the good shepherd, sing something over you. Let me be the source. Let me write the lyric. Let me write the tune. Let me define the relationship that I'm going to have with you. Relationship of love, a relationship of grace. Let Jesus, the Good Shepherd, sing a song over you. Secondly, Jesus, the Good Shepherd, chases us down. He pursues us. We see this in Luke 15 where he tells the story of the 100 sheep and how the one sheep leaves. And Jesus leaves the 99 and he goes after the one. And when he finds the lost sheep, he puts the sheep on his shoulders and he rejoices, he smiles. Back to that picture of that statue, why that's so important. Because he's carrying the sheep home. He is the savior of that sheep, and he pursues you and I in ways that we will never, ever understand. I love what Psalm 23 says in verse 6, but remember Psalm 23, is such a beautiful picture of the Lord as my shepherd. But it says this in verse 6, it says, your beauty and love chase after me every day of my life. I'm back home in the house of God for the rest of my life. Can you imagine just Jesus, the good shepherd, chasing you, pursuing you, wanting you so badly that he'll do anything to find you and to engage in you. And yet so often in our lives, we run away. Or we tell Jesus, the good shepherd, we say, hey, Jesus, I got this. You can just stay over there. I'm going to go do this. I don't know if any of you saw the funeral this week of Billy Graham. It was a beautiful ceremony and just this amazing time of honoring one of America's greatest evangelists and men of God. And one of the things that they did at the funeral is they had different people share. And one of the people that shared at the funeral was Ruth Graham, which was Billy's daughter. And she gave this really moving story and told this story about a time in her life and the relationship with her father. And she shared about how after 21 years of marriage, she ended up divorcing this guy, and her marriage crumbled, and it was a very painful season of her life. And she was embarrassed and felt shame about it, and it felt like she had disappointed daddy. And she talked about how after this season, she moved to a new city to be closer to her sister, and she started attending a new church. And she met this widower, this other guy, and they began to start dating. And she explained how her kids really didn't like this guy at all. And she told herself, well, my kids are grown. They shouldn't have any say in this. This is my life now. What do they know? And then she talked about how her dad, Billy, called her one night and just encouraged her to slow down with this relationship. But she thought to herself, oh, what do mom and dad know? They don't know what it's like to be single and divorced. And so she kept pressing forward. And she shared how on New Year's Eve, she ended up marrying this guy. And then 24 hours later, she says she knew that she had made a horrible, horrible mistake. And then 5 weeks later, she would leave the man out of fear, and that marriage would end. And she told the story about how after she left this guy 5 weeks into this new marriage and began to drive for 2 days up to her parents' house to be with them, she just kept thinking about what they're going to say or what they must think about her. About how now not only was she divorced, but now she's a twice divorcee. And she was Billy Graham's daughter. Just embarrassed daddy. And so she talked about driving up into the mountains and then going around the bend of the driveway. And there around the bend on the driveway is standing her dad, Billy. And she stops the car, she gets out of the car, and he walks up to her and he just embraces her and hugs her. No lectures, no speeches, no I told you so's. Just the embrace, and Billy whispers into her ear, welcome home. And that is the picture to me of how God chases you and I, who just desires relationship with us, even when our lives are falling apart, even when we say, no, I got this, God. I know what I'm doing. Even when we feel shame, when we feel like we're going to be rejected by God, God says, no, welcome home. Welcome home. You're with me. I am the good shepherd. Close with this story. Actually last year, I had the opportunity to go to Angola prison. And Angola prison is the largest prison in the United States. It's a maximum security prison the size of Manhattan. And there's over 6,000 inmates in this maximum security prison. And a team of us were going in, and we're going to encourage and just kind of do some teaching and some counseling there. And we're all kind of flying in from different areas of the country to spend a couple days in Angola prison. And my friend Sean, who is a worship leader, she's a worship leader at Saddleback Church just up the way. She was flying in to Angola to meet the team, and she ended up sitting next to a woman named Cheryl. And Cheryl recognized her from the church and as being part of the worship team there, and they struck up a friendship, and they began to talk on the flight. And it's about to land. Cheryl asked Sean, like, why are you coming to Louisiana? And she's all, well, I'm going to Angola prison. And Cheryl looks at Sean like, you're going to Angola prison? She's all, yeah, a team of us are going there, and we're going to connect with some of the inmates. And she's like, no way. I can't believe you're going there, because actually the guy who murdered my aunt is in Angola prison. He's on death row right now. And we have been trying to get a message into him to let him know that the family has forgiven him. But we're having troubles, and you see, the justice system isn't set up in such a way where they want reconciliation to happen between inmates and families. And so they've been trying to get this message in to this guy. The guy who murdered Cheryl's aunt was named Jeremiah. And Jeremiah is on death row. And to just give you an example of what happened, Jeremiah kidnapped Cheryl's aunt one night, drove her into a field and murdered her. And now he's facing the death penalty and on death row. And Cheryl goes, hey, Sean, do you think you're going to see Jeremiah by any chance? And Sean's like, I don't know. I mean, there's 6,000 inmates, and death row is the most secure place on a maximum security prison. They don't just let anybody go on death row. But Cheryl asked, Sean's like, if you see Jeremiah, can you tell him for us that we've forgiven him, that we've released him, that God's forgiven him? And Sean looked at Cheryl and said, yeah, if I see him, I will tell him. And so through a series of circumstances the next day, a group of us end up on death row. And we walk through security and all the metal detectors, and Sean and I are there, and we look at the guard like, where is Jeremiah? Is there a guy named Jeremiah here? And the guard says, yeah, Jeremiah is at the end of this hallway, the very end on the left. And so me and Sean and a couple others, we walk down to Jeremiah's cell, and he stands up, and he is this massive man, like 6'7", probably like 250 pounds. He's like, it's, white as a bus. And he stands up, and we start talking, and we tell him who we are and what we're doing, and just kind of talking about life. And then Sean says, hey, Jeremiah, I actually met somebody who was connected to the woman that you married. Her name was Cheryl, and I met her on the plane yesterday, and she told me that she wanted to tell you something, and the family has been trying to tell you that you are forgiven, that they forgive you, that they give you grace. And God gives you grace. And I just remember standing there and looking at Jeremiah, and it's just like, I can't believe this. I can't believe, just being overwhelmed with the fact that he was being forgiven by this family. And then Sean looks up at Jeremiah. He goes, hey, Sean, or Jeremiah, do you mind if I sing you a song? And just to give you an example, Sean is like this tall, and Jeremiah is this tall. And so she looks up at this guy who just is in such need of God's grace, and she begins to sing a song. The song, Amazing Grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. It's the Good Shepherd. He sings a song over us. Good Shepherd pursues us, even if we're on death row, needing to be forgiven. He will find a way. Even if you're in a corner office and you're the CEO and you feel broken right now, he will pursue you and wants you to come to him. Maybe you have struggled, which is the fact of, does God even care about me? He does. He wants to draw you unto him. He wants to forgive you. He wants to give you life and to live freely and lightly with him. Let's bow our heads in prayer. God, thank you so much for being the good shepherd, for pursuing us, Lord, for wanting us. God, we thank you for knowing us and knowing everything about us, and that we don't have to be afraid. We don't have to feel shame. We just lean into your love and to know that we are forgiven, that we are free, that we are whole, that we are made new because of what you've done. God, I pray for those in the room right now who need to be carried by the Good Shepherd. I pray right now for those who need to hear a new song. God, speak to us. Release our hearts. Let us know your love. It's in your Son's name we pray. And all of God's people said, amen.